I came to the kibbutz. I started out in Geva. I married Ophira. I went to the army, and I got to Urim, and there I began my kibbutz career officially. I worked in the Refet for a year or 2 years, and then we got some sheep, and I became a shepherd. I worked with animals. I was like a kid. I grew up with animals. I always liked dogs, cats, monkeys, anything I could find. So I worked with animals. Around 1962, I think, I had been there over 10 years, and they were selling the sheep. So I had no more animals to work with. And people were saying, what are we going to do? No animals? What's we going to do? There was a place for a little children's zoo, but there was really not serious work. And then somebody had the idea that I work with what they call a chevrat noar. That is a group of kids that were put together through the organization that used to be called Aliyat Noar. Aliyat Noar was something that came up in the 30s when Hitler was doing what he was doing, and they were gathering up children from all of the troubled areas into small groups, and they would bring them to Israel, and most of them would be sent to various kibbutzim to receive their education there and become Israelis. When the war was over and the state was established, any organization doesn't like to disappear. So the organization of Aliyat Noar was used to gather up children from families that were not functioning properly and to send them in groups to kibbutzim. And our kibbutz received such a group. And they were working already. They'd already come at least the year before the sheep went, and I was right in the middle there. And there was a place that was totally open. They had a wonderful teacher, an amazing teacher, and they studied half days, and then half days they worked. And they had a great house mother who was able to handle all of the little things that kids need to have handled for them. She did a wonderful job. What they didn't have is anyone to teach them how to be a group and how to work as a group. But everybody knows there's no such thing as a vacuum. So the group had organized themselves, and there were like 3 subgroups. But there was one that was the stronger one, were considered the tough guys. And they all smoked and they hung out and everything was, they were there, and there was like something like 5 or 6 altogether. They were in 2 rooms, they lived. And then there was another kind of group that wanted to go along, and so it was in the middle. The girls were attached to the boys there, but they functioned. There's no vacuum. They functioned. But if somebody got into the bad graces of some part of that leading group, he had trouble. And there were constantly kids that were being pushed out and others coming in, and there was a lot of tension there. I came in the middle of all this. I sat them down, I started talking to them, they started laughing at me. You're going to tell us that our penises grow at this age or something like that? We know it all. So I remember that, it was very embarrassing. It was a hard meeting. I realized that's not going to work, and I said, okay, we're going to have a pajama party. And then there were female leaders, but ladies are ladies. They're like a little bit on the side. One of them is called Zvi, who later on became part of our adopted family. She was a very strong woman, with a friend called Mitzchia, who went on to be a nurse. But the two of them together were really a powerful couple. And they came to me and they said, have a dance. Well, anybody who knew me, or he knows me, knows that both feet are left. So politically I'm totally left. Two left feet and left politically. I didn't know what to do. I said, okay, how do you do it? They said, well, we have one kid who likes to be a DJ, and he's got a whole selection of dance records, and we'll just let the kids know that after we go to bed, in the middle of the night, like at 11 or 12, we'll all get up and we'll go out and we'll have a dance. And the kibbutz won't know a thing about it. But you will be there because you're the madrich. So I said, okay. They handled everything. The whole thing was put together. I put my kids to sleep, and I went out afterwards, and I put them to sleep in their rooms, and at 11 or 12, everybody gets up, comes running out to the moadon, there's music playing, and they're dancing, and Zvi doesn't let me stand there. Left feet and all, she takes me and makes me dance with them. And all of them look and they say, our counselor is dancing. Well, that sort of set us off at a good point, but the group was still a group. The leaders still felt they were leaders, and I had to do something. One of the first things I did is I said, well, we'll go out into the fields. I'll take the furthest field from the kibbutz, and we'll make a coffee and have a little party there. They liked the idea. We went out, we made coffee, ate things. They were sitting around, and it was time to come back. Now, there's a great big wagon and a tractor. And two kids get under the wheels of the wagon. I'm on the tractor up high, and I say, everybody on the wagon, and they're smiling and staying there, because they're actually saying, we'll tell you when to start, you don't tell us when to start. So this was a power play. So I looked and I said, look, I'm going to count to 3, I'm going to start going. Anybody that wants to die will stay underneath. They smiled. One of them got up. The other one, Chaim, his name was, if people will remember these people, anybody who remembers, he stays there. Well, I put it into first gear, and I let the clutch out very slowly, and the tractor began to move, and the wagon began to move, and Chaim begins to feel that skin is being pinched by the wheels. So he jumps out screaming, "What are you doing? You could have killed me!" I said, "No, you could have committed suicide. I warned you, I told you we're going to go. What do you want from me?" From then on, I had a friend. I didn't believe it, but that's true. From then on, he was my right-hand man. Anything I wanted, he would do. He built a tabun for making bread, homemade bread, Yemenite style, planted strawberries. He did a million things, but he was really always there. That went very well. I tried working some other things. I thought they were always in a group all their lives. I took them out to the fields and I put them one, all separated out in the whole area. And I said, you can make coffee or whatever you want. Everyone had a little coffee maker. But try to stay alone. If you can't, you'll join one another. And it was an interesting experiment. They were all very excited at the end, because the ones that joined because they couldn't stand being alone, and others maintained themselves, and everybody was proud of what he did. So I think it was an important thing to do with a group of people that are living all the time as a group and they don't know what it is to be alone. Well, I was working with the group and things were going well, but I decided that I have to get to know the parents. And I started going to visit parents, which was really a very exciting thing for me. I learned what Yemenite food was like, and I met some amazing people. There was one where I went to a ma'abara, a place, temporary housing for immigrants, and this was a man who had been through the Holocaust and arrived from somewhere in Europe, I don't know where, I didn't ask. And he was living alone. I went to see him, and he didn't really want to talk to me very much. So I said, okay, I have to tell you though, your son is a very good worker, very intelligent in his schooling, but he smokes all the time, and cigarette smoking is not allowed, and it's a real serious problem. And this guy, he smokes, my son, how wonderful. Just, so I said, but we tell him not to, and he keeps on smoking. He said, like father, like son. And I'm sitting there, and it's hard to describe because we're sitting on just like a stoop of a wooden house that he lived in, a very small cabin, I guess. Or there was a string of cabins strung together for a time. And everything I tell him about what his son does wrong, the father is saying, "Oh, that's my boy, how wonderful." Well, I don't know what to do. I get up, he gives me a glass of whiskey, I can't deny that, I drink it. And I say goodbye and I go. And I come back, and the kids go out for a weekend at home, and this boy comes back and he says, "What did you do to my father? He was wonderful. He usually ignores me and he goes about his business, and he sat me down and he talked to me and he told me all about his life story, and he hugged me, and I don't know what you did." And I didn't know what, I still don't know exactly what I did. I really came to complain to him about his son, but they were very well together, and I figured, okay, a win is a win. So I took that, and I had to remember that. Getting to know the families was really an exciting for my education, because I learned a little bit about all the different people that got thrown together in our small country. I was with the group, and I said I have to do something that'll pull them all together, because things were going well, they're working, but I have to do something and pull them together. And at the time there was something called the Jerusalem Walk. No?
It was the 4 days march.
Yeah, the 4
days walk.
It was a 4-day walk.
Yeah.
They get to some place usually around where Modi'in is now, and we'd start walking, and we'd cover various parts, because it's not 160 kilometers to Jerusalem, but they made it 160. We walked 42 kilometers every day until we got to Jerusalem. And I thought that's a wonderful thing to do with these kids. So I put them together, and we started walking every morning and running and walking and running. And they built up a really group feeling. And the time came around, I registered our group. I said I got a group of, I think, 27 kids, if I remember rightly. And we went out. They sent a bus to pick us up. It was evening, and we were coming from, the Negev was still far away from the center of the country. So to come from there to where Modi'in is now, it took a couple of hours. And we got there, we were the last bus in line. There was something like 10 or 12 buses in front of us, so we got there in the back. And we see the buses are all standing. We get up. I look around, I don't know what to do. I tell the kids, get down. Take off you have to take down the suitcase with the packages. Buses at the time didn't have a place for baggage underneath. They had a big kind of a ladder on the roof of the bus, and all the bags, suitcases, duffel bags, and like that everybody had was thrown up on top there. So I sent a couple of kids up to throw the bags down. I began organizing the bags. I give a look and I see the buses are all standing. And there's a guy, an officer, I learned later on, was an Aluf Mishneh. They brought him out because the kids weren't moving, they weren't getting off the buses. And I walked forward, I said, what's happening? And he says, well, they don't want to take off the suitcases. They say we should do it because they loaded the buses. We have to unload the buses. In the meantime, the drivers were saying we have to drive back. And there was like a war going on. And I didn't even start this thing, but the kids that finished our bus load got all their baggage off. One of them already climbed up on the roof of the next bus. So I looked, I said, that's a good thing. I sent a couple up on each, on a couple of the buses. And I said, okay, we'll unload for them. And I started throwing the buses down, the baggage down from the top. And the officers go into the buses and say, look, these kids look a lot younger than you guys are, and they're unloading your buses. Be ashamed of yourselves. So they came out, and the strike was broken, and this man, the Aluf Mishneh, colonel in the army, was very impressed, and he said, you have a wonderful bunch of kids. How old are they? And I said, they're 14 and a half. He says, this is from 17 and over, Yud Aleph, Yud Bet. 16 and a half, 17 they have to be, they can't be less than that. I said, here they are. We've unloaded, we walk well, I've trained them, they've been walking for 2 or 3 months steadily every day, morning and evening. They'll be good, you'll see. He scratches his head and says, I don't know what to do. He comes out, he says, okay, you go the first day, we'll talk at the end of the day. I said, okay. They went the first day, got there singing and dancing and happy, 42 kilometers. They were part of the group, everybody loved them. So we marched 4 days. And we got to Jerusalem with everybody, we finished it all up. And I really thought that was it. But we got back to the kibbutz, and I was notified by the Gadna. I have to tell you what the Gadna is. There was a special organization in the army for pre-army education that used to take high school kids and take them like on walks like that, and also send them to learn how to use guns and shoot and prepare them for their army training, because it was clear that every kid gets to be 18, he's going to go to the army, boy or girl. So they did that, but the ones that we had, the groups that I was working with, the Aliyat Nor, were considered not good army material. so nobody expected them to serve in the army. So they never went. At any rate, after we did this walk, our kids were invited to come to a 2-week training period, pre-army training period. And they were going to go, and I said, okay, but I thought it's not good that I'm doing all this work with the kids, and the teacher the kids loved completely. The house mother, who was a wonderful person, wonderful worker, she wasn't getting any funds, so I said to her, you take them. And she was very happy to do it. Finally, she's getting to go out with the kids. She went out. And it was supposed to be a 12-day thing, if I remember rightly, 2 weeks. After 2.5 days, I get a phone call in the evening. Now, a phone call in the early 1960s is not like a phone call today. This is a kibbutz. There was one phone in the dining room. It rings. Somebody picks up the phone. They say, call Zvi Miller. And somebody has to go running halfway around the kibbutz until he gets to my room. He wakes me up. He says, you got a phone call. I have to get out, get up, get out, half asleep, run down again, I don't know, 100, 200 meters, but I have to get to the dining room. And only then I pick up the phone. And I say, what's happening? And this is the woman that went out with the kids so happily, and she said, the kids locked themselves into the moadon. How do you say moadon?
Club?
The clubhouse. They had a clubhouse there for all the young soldiers, so to speak. And they lock themselves in, and nobody goes in, nobody goes out. And I said, okay, so what's going on? And she says, they'll only talk to you. They won't talk to anybody else. And the officers there wanted to come. Nobody could go in there. It was locked. So 6 in the morning I got up. I went down there. And I was really excited. I mean, my boys, they did a sit-in. They were standing up for their rights. I walked in. I said, what happened? What's going on? They said, they told us, Yachas gorer yachas. And this is a way that the army works. The corporals will take their soldiers and say, if you're good for me, I'll be good for you, you'll see. But they don't really mean it, because they have to train them. To train them, they have to make them fall down when they have to fall down, and crawl and jump and do all the things that nobody likes to do. But that's what they tell them. So they told the kids, you be good to us, we'll be good to you. And they weren't good to them. They had to make them run and jump and fall and climb. They didn't like to do it. So they got mad. And they took over the clubhouse, locked themselves in. They had food there forever. And there was a coffee machine. I walked in, it was really nicely done. At any rate, so I had to get on a bus at the time and get down there. And then they had a car picking me up from Beersheba, and they took me the rest of the way. And I went, it was in stable care. And I went in, and I saw what was going on. There was a big table up front, inside the moadon, inside the clubhouse, and that group of 6 kids that at the beginning were the troublemakers, all smokers and like that, they were all sitting around the table, and the rest were just in the clubhouse, sitting. And I walk in and I say, what's going on? And Shauli, alav hashalom, he passed away since then, but he was a little guy, and he had a lot of strength in the group. And he said, they told us, if we have a good relationship with them, they'll be good to us, and they weren't. They wanted us to lay down and to pick up our rifle and to shoot and to this and that, and we couldn't do it. We didn't want to do it. So we said no, and we locked ourselves in here. And they tried to talk to us, and we don't want to do it. Nothing. So you're here now. So I was smiling because in those days a sit-in was a big thing. These were the days of the flower revolution in America, and people were doing sit-ins all over America, and it was in the papers and everything like that. My boys do a sit-in. So on the one hand, I was very proud. On the other hand, I didn't know what to do. I went to talk to the colonel who was in charge of the base, and he said, look, we were afraid to get your kids in the first place because these are street kids and they're not the usual kind of soft Tel Aviv children that that's what I'm quoting, that we're used to getting. But we heard good things about them, and they were really very good the first couple of days. But look what happened. So I said to him, they don't understand when somebody says, you be good to us, we'll be good to you. They expect they're meant to be good to them. So he said, but you know, this is the army. I said, I know. You know, they don't know. You can't talk to them like that because every kid that goes through the regular high school learns about how the army is and learns all the jokes of how they treat you in the army in boot camp. But they didn't know anything. So he said, well, what can you do now? They're sitting there and I don't know what to do. I say, you come to talk to them. I'll tell them that I'm bringing you the head of the base. And I think you have to explain to them that when they say that we'll be good, what they mean is that we will train you as well as we can and you have to learn to obey. And they don't know that because nobody told them that. They just said, you be good to us, we'll be good to you. So he came. He was a very nice man. He walked in, they sat down, made coffee for him, and it was really like a powwow. And they used to, the Western movies used to show these things, where they came in for peace talks with the Indians and the white soldiers. He slowly and carefully explains. And he said, you have to learn because we're preparing you for war. We're preparing you to go out and fight, and you're going to be shot at. And if you don't flop down on the floor without thinking that there are stones and things that are going to stick you, you're going to die. So, and he really did it very nicely. And he scared them a bit, and they settled down. And I was able to go back the same day and have Carmi come and continue the time with them. Okay, I left out something, and what I learned once is that when you leave something out, there has to be a reason for it. And yes, there was a reason. It was something very sad. There was one member of the group who was what they used to call a typical, just the word,
Outcast?
a typical Jewish outcast. They used to come also from all over, and they didn't know how to get used to the Israeli society, and they were all marked like that. And he was like that. He was bent over and small kid, and he was there. quiet. He did nothing. And then we were on a truck for going on a hike, and this local hero in the group started beating up on him. And he was beating up on him and beating up on him. And I was still fairly new at the time. And I look and I say, "What are you doing?" And he just lets it all go, and he keeps on troubling him. We get off the truck, and this boy was one of the stronger ones, and we used to play around boxing a lot until his arms got to be much longer than mine, and he realized, and I realized, that he was able to beat me boxing all the time because his reach was much further. And we stopped, and he felt that made him able to challenge. We got off the truck, and I go as if I'm going to talk to him, and I knocked him down on the ground. And to his credit, I'll say, he got up, brushed himself off, looked, said, "Aha." And he climbed back on the truck, and he befriended this boy. His name was Aryeh, and they were together until they went to the army. Now, all these kids who were not supposed to go to the army, they all went to the army, and they all went in 1967. That was the year that they went in. And they walked right into the war. And after the war, they were still in the army, and they had to deal with infiltrators all over. And this boy, Aryeh, in '69, it was like 2 years later, was doing his, he already got married. He had me over at his house and showed me his child, and it was really wonderful. And the week after, he was killed
In action.
near Jericho, in the Jericho area there, in the Wadis. And he was the one that we lost. And I really mourn him.